well, we just have to take this amazing vacation before we have a child, because once we have kids, then we'll never do anything fun again. Or we can't do anything fun now because we have kids. But once they all move out, then we have big plans. This is one of my personal pet peeves. Like, kids are the end of you having fun. There is no denying that it takes additional effort, but kids can actually remind you to play and give meaning to your dreams.
Welcome to the What Could Go Right podcast. We are your hosts, Erik Orton.
And I'm Emily Orton.
And here we talk about personal growth and sailing. In 2014, we moved aboard a fixer-upper sailboat and bootstrapped a year sailing with our 5 kids, and it changed our lives forever.
We tell the whole story in our memoir, our book, 7 at Sea. On this podcast, we want to help you go from fear to freedom, one adventure at a time.
So we didn't always feel that it would be the greatest thing in the world to go traveling with kids. That's not where we started. We started in a completely different place, and maybe you can relate.
I think I should come clean here and just say I didn't even want to have kids. As a dad of 5, that's a terrible confession.
This is my first time hearing it. So
what?
You didn't want to talk about it, but now you're saying like I didn't even want any.
Oh well, maybe I'm overselling it. But I remember when we were newlyweds. I don't know. I just figured like maybe eventually, but I was like no time soon, no, and because I was like we were in college, and what was our like
we could barely take care of ourselves. So.
Yeah, like we owned a bicycle.
Yes, a really nice one that we actually had a loan on. I was making
installment payments on a bicycle, and we lived in a 1-bedroom cinder block apartment, which was a great place to live. And we were fine, but I wasn't like, what would really, like make this extra special is bringing in a screaming poopy kid. You know what? And so
kids get such the bad rap, like all they do is scream and poop.
Yeah. So anyway, Emily is a magician.
I'm a magician.
She worked her magic on me, and we decided to have a family starting very young. And turns out I'm dead wrong. I was dead wrong.
What did you think was going to happen if we had a child? Because I'll tell what my magic formula was. Every night I prayed that Erik's heart would be softened to the idea of children. So if you want to try that strategy, it doesn't hurt anything.
You're like a spiritual magician.
No, okay, but I remember what did you tell me?
I was like, because, I was studying, I was like doing theater, writing shows, being in shows. I would be at rehearsal until 10 o'clock at night, sometimes even later. And then we'd have tech rehearsals that would go until the middle of the night. And I was out all the time. And and I had my regular course load of classes. And I just thought, if we have a baby, then anytime we have a free evening, or even if we don't have a free evening, we're just going to sit home and hold this baby and just stare at it. And that's what we'll do. And maybe we'll watch TV if we can afford a TV. But other than that, like, what do? It's when you have no money and you have a baby, you just stay home and watch the baby. And that doesn't sound fun to me.
Yeah, I remember you thinking, like, I won't be able to be in any shows anymore. I won't be able to participate in extracurricular activities. Like, if we have a child, then I'll go to work, I'll go to school, and I'll come home and stare at the baby.
Yeah, stare at that baby.
A lot of hours of staring.
I was going to be really good at staring at the baby.
But what actually happened?
Well, actually, I did stare at that baby. I remember the first Sunday we went to church after having our baby, and I was holding Karina, and I literally just sat in Sunday school class and just stared at that baby. I could not take my eyes off her. She was fascinating. And I was like, holy cow, I'm a dad. And so anyway.
I think you were staring so much that somebody else talked to you about it afterwards.
They're like, you were like in a trance, bro. Like, I'm busy over here. I'm staring at my daughter.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Well, yeah, that's true. That's true. And it moved on from there. But what I remember happening is that you continued to be involved in theater, and Karina and I would come wait in the green room so we could see you at intermission, or when you worked on a professional show, and we would ride up with you just so we could talk together. And then we would kind of walk around the campus where the theater was. Mm-hmm. And then we'd ride home together. And you could tell us about your day, how the show went. And actually, if you built something for a festival, then we'd come see it, and you were like, it was very different. And it started there. Like, I think within her first month, she had been to like 3 shows.
Yeah. She was very privileged theatrically.
I think I remember saying to you, we are the nucleus, and these kids are going to be the electrons and protons that, go around and around the universe we're creating for them. So they're joining us.
Okay.
It was kind of like the main philosophy that we started with when the kids started joining our family.
I think the way we described it is they're getting on our rocket ship. Yeah. We're not getting on theirs because, and I think this is probably worth mentioning, is that I think a lot of parents feel like the kids come first. I totally disagree. Is it important to take care of your kids and give them a safe home, give them food, clothing, shelter, and love? Yes. But guess who comes first? Mom and dad come first. You are more important to me than all of our kids combined.
And the beautiful thing is that gives them the stability that they need to thrive. And so putting our marriage first is also putting our kids first.
Lucky them.
And obviously you were immediately besotted with our first child. I remember you saying, her eyes are so blue.
Well, here was my big fear. My big fear was that they would grow. And I can say all this because I just got the most beautiful, I wish I had them with me. I got the most beautiful Father's Day cards from my kids. And I just remember one of my big fears was our kids would grow up and I would have nothing in common with them. I said, what if they're interested in chemistry? Like, I can appreciate chemistry, but I'm not good at it.
Right. That's not where my interest is.
Yeah. So, anyway, it turns out we have a lot more in common than I ever imagined. And our oldest, Karina, she gave me a card and it said, Dad, thanks for taking a risk on having a family. Oh. And I thought that was really sweet and she went on to list a lot of other really kind, thoughtful things that she thanked me for. But I just want to say, yeah, moms and dads listening, or potential moms and dads, having a family is a risk for sure. But also remember that when you do have kids, at least in my opinion, they're getting on your rocket ship. Your life does not revolve around them. They get to come on whatever you're doing. You get to keep living the life you want, and they get to go on an amazing ride if you want to give it to them.
I'm thinking about the dedication at the front of our book, 7 at Sea. We dedicated it to our children, and it says, for our crew, Karina, Allison, Sarah Jane, Eli, and Lily, you will always be our greatest adventure.
Lucky kids.
And it still continues. Like it keeps growing, it keeps going. But I want to actually dig into some of these things of like, okay, everybody knows if you're going to take kids traveling with you, then you're going to have to like pack for them and pay for their ticket and address their needs along the way as well, which adds a layer of complication.
We're not totally heartless. At least I'm not.
Yeah. We're not saying that doesn't happen. But here are some of the benefits that kids bring to travel. Kids know how to play.
Mm-hmm.
And being around kids can draw that out of you so that you can actually, in many cases, enjoy the experience more as you are having it with them or alongside them or through their eyes.
Yeah, they can help you. They can help remind you that some things are delightful that as grown-ups we just breeze past and we don't take time to notice. Yeah.
And they can also encourage you to keep going and to stick with it. Like, we had this crazy idea to live on a sailboat for a year as a family. We talked about it for so many years, right? And at one point, our 14-year-old daughter said, do you really have the guts to do this? It turns out that we did. And when we finally got out there, it was so overwhelming that Erik and I were spending all of our time, all of our waking hours really troubleshooting and trying to figure things out in this new environment, in this new way of living. And it was the kids who came to us and said, you told us we were coming out here to spend time together as a family, but we're not spending time together as a family. Like they held us accountable and we course corrected, and we still had to resolve those issues, but we didn't let it take up the whole day.
Yeah. They helped us remember our original vision.
Mm-hmm.
They spoke truth to us, truth to power.
And when we got scared of maybe not going, they would remind us about how excited they were. When we got scared, when we got cold feet, they would remind us how excited they were. So we didn't have to be continuously excited about the idea to get it across the finish line, because there was a whole team of us on board.
For sure.
What were some of the other benefits?
Well,
I'm speaking of this specifically, but it could be any number of trips that we've taken the kids.
Well, I'll also say that kids help you remember to take breaks, because sometimes as adults, we just want to go hard and fast, and we'll just wear ourselves out in our adventuring, and kids can remind you, hey, take a snack break, take a nap, drink a little bit of water, sit down in the shade. You don't have to go full out all the time. And they can just in some cases, you're like, oh, I wish these kids would just walk faster, or I wish they didn't need to stop and take a potty break all the time. But sometimes that actually can be really helpful.
Mm-hmm.
So there's that.
And I'm also thinking of a few episodes back, I'll put the link in the show notes. We interviewed a family that took this risk and went on a multi-month family trip across Europe. And in the beginning, their kids were complaining all of the time about walking. And they were thinking, why are we here? Why did we do this to our family? But because they persisted, the kids actually got stronger. And by the end, they're not complaining at all. They don't complain about how far we walk. They don't complain when we have to go uphill. They don't complain about not having tons of toys or lots of friends. And they had downsized probably from a very spacious home, like a multi-thousand square foot home, and into just like a suitcase. And
a van that they drove around.
It's such a good interview, good episode.
Dan and Natalie Reeves.
They even got robbed and were grateful.
The kids were just saying, we took so much for granted when we were home, and we're kind of I
can't believe I complained.
I can't believe I complained about this or that. So yeah, go back and listen to Dan and Natalie Reeves' interview. We'll put the link in the show notes. That's a good one.
So another thing that the Reeves learned and also we experienced was a deepening and strengthening of our family culture, where we were the most important characters in each other's lives and the most influential.
What's the book that you read where it talks about kind of like hold on to your kids? Is that what it's called?
Yeah, hold on to your kids. I think it's Gabor Mate, and I can't remember. The other guy's name is a little harder to pronounce, but I'll put it in the link as well.
Because the snippet that I remember from that is that, if you're concerned at all about how society is shaping your kids into something that you don't think is best for them, it's not in their best interest, then consider their assertion is that be the most important people in your kids' lives. Let them have them care more about what you think than what their peers think, because their peers are going to come up with some wacky stuff,
and it's always going to be a moving target.
And so they're going to be having to shapeshift to feel confident or to fit in. But if you can be steady, and they can know that they can always come to you and talk to you, and that you will, how do I say it? Just that they can value your opinion and want to be with you, which I think every parent wants. Every parent wants their kids to value what we as moms and dads have to say and to want to spend time with us. Maybe not always, maybe not forever, but to want to stay connected. If we can become those anchoring influences in our kids' lives, then we just have a longer connection throughout our entire lives. And one of the great ways to do that is to travel together. And if you're talking about an advantage of traveling with kids, you can create some powerful connections when you have those kinds of traveling experiences. Those are like exponentially predominant in our memories because they involve so many new things and so many influential things. And so when we do those with our kids, as opposed to them going out with their buddies or their friends or their roommates, whoever it is, when you do those as a family, whether your kids are living under your roof at the time or not, I think it can have a similar effect.
I just was thinking that we do this with our older kids as well. It's not just with the little kids. Little kids are great because you can just pick them up and move them to the location where they need to be or stroll them there. The teenagers are typically pretty compliant once they get over the cultural detox.
Mm-hmm.
But we also have done this with our adult kids, and this was such good advice that we got from our fellow sailor when one of our daughters got engaged, and it didn't look like it was a good match. It seemed like maybe the other party wasn't ready for that kind of commitment, and he laughed at us, and then
Our friend,
our friend laughed at
our
us.
other dad friend.
Yes, not the young man. He was very respectful and welcoming. But he said, well, what you need to do is get out there and get close and go on a road trip.
Mm-hmm.
And go with lots of different ages of people and change plans. Not like we're strategizing to make our plans change, but plans just change. But to be in an environment where we have to pivot or things don't go the way we hoped, and now we have to make a different plan. And it was really helpful because we went on that trip, and she came to her own conclusion. Like, we went out there, like, we're going to get to know him. We're going to love him. We're going to love the heck out of this because this is how we stay close to our daughter. But it also gave them an opportunity to see each other in a variety of circumstances, back to back to back. And they changed their minds.
Yep.
So I think, I would love for you to tell about your big idea when we were traveling on the sailboat, and I was feeling a little overwhelmed with doing the cooking and preparing homeschool lessons basically from scratch every day.
So yeah, we've been on the boat for maybe a month or so at this point, and we figured out a lot of things, but we have a lot further to go. And Emily is really, she's the lodestar in our homeschooling effort with our kids, who are now all graduated from homeschooling.
I'm graduated from homeschooling.
Emily has graduated as a homeschool mom. We have no more homeschool kids at home. And so anyway, she's doing a fair bit as we're trying to, because the kids are really self-directed in a lot of ways, but as we adjust to this new environment, she's really trying to help keep them, it's just a shift. Mm-hmm. And she's putting a lot of energy, but there's 3 meals a day that still have to get put on the table, and we're still trying to figure out fixing up our boat and just figuring out everything that is life on a sailboat. And it's a lot. And our kids are smart, and the oldest now are 16, 15, and 12. Is that about right?
Oh, well, we're on the boat
at this time.
Yes,
yeah.
Those were their ages.
So 16, 15, and 12. So we're not like asking, kids to work in a factory when they're 6 years old or something, but we're like, hey, 16-year-old, 15-year-old, and 12-year-old, we need you to be part of the team in helping prep the meals. And so we said, what we would propose is each of you being in charge of one meal, that same meal all week long. So Karina, we'd like to propose you being in charge of breakfast this week. Sarah Jane, you're in charge of lunch all this week. Allison, dinner. And then the next week you're going to switch, and you'll then be in, you rotate to a different meal. So you're doing a meal every day, but it's, at different times of day. And we said, we'll still do the grocery shopping, and, and mom will help you with ideas for recipes and maybe figuring out what will go well with what. But our kids they prepared all the food. I think with maybe the exception of Sundays where you would step in.
Oh, yeah. I would come in on like Saturday and Sunday.
Yeah. So you would cover the weekends, and every now and then I would like make some terrible pancakes or something. And so our kids got in the rhythm of making meals. And it taught them a lot of things. First of all, it taught them how to cook. It taught them how to organize their time, because they'd think, oh, if we're going to have this for dinner, we need to get this prepped earlier in the day for it to go smoothly at dinner time. And then they also got creative, and they would say, hey, I'm in charge of lunch for our family, and they would invite their friends over and they would make it a group activity. And a lot of the other kids on other boats didn't know how to cook or bake either, and so they would do it together, and the other kids learned, our kids got to teach, and our kids skyrocketed in their confidence in the food department beyond, like, I wished I had their confidence, truly. And I'll just say that to this day, now that they've moved out and they're, you know, living on their own, some are married, you know, they just thank us. They thank us for giving them that opportunity, though, you know, not just that one, but other similar ones, to truly develop these skills that help them in life. And, you know, I know that all travel doesn't involve putting your kids in charge of 3 meals a day. Oftentimes it
Well,
involves,
1 meal a day.
yeah, or, you know, oftentimes it involves going to Chick-fil-A, or, you know, hitting a you know, a taco truck or something. It's not, you know, but giving our kids chances to be part of the team that makes the travel smooth, especially when they're older and when they're capable, you know, hitting them with responsibilities that are age appropriate. And sometimes we shouldn't underestimate them. They're probably capable of more than we often give them credit for. But
And
doing that lets them contribute and prepares them for life.
yeah, and one of the things they loved about it is that they already loved cooking. They got to do it sometimes at home because we lived in New York City. If they wanted to play and I wasn't available to go outside, I wouldn't just send them outside. I would say, "Oh yeah, you can like make potions or do things in the kitchen, or you can try a new recipe or whatever." And they learned a lot that way. And then this just took it to another level for them. So it was something that we already knew they enjoyed doing, and it was one of the ways that they did bond with those other kids. And then those other kids felt so amazing because now they could bake homemade wheat bread, you know, from scratch, and they didn't know how to do that before. And it was just such a fun time. I was very worried at first because I had predominantly been in that role, and I was like, well, what am I doing now? And so it was great for them, and I learned that what they needed from me as a mom wasn't that I made the meal every day. What they really wanted was me to be their emotional touchstone. And I never would have learned that if I had not stepped aside from the chores, you know, that I was doing to contribute at that time. If I hadn't shifted my focus to let them do something they enjoyed, I would have missed out on finding out what really matters. And that helped me make a shift to be more available, to look in their eyes, to make one-on-one conversations a priority. And I learned so much from that experience as well. Another thing I loved about traveling with kids was that it broke the digital grip.
What do you mean by that?
Just that, you know, we're in that first wave of parents who are raising kids with access to the internet and smartphones. I think we got a smartphone shortly after our 5th child was born, which is our last child.
I mean, you and I got smartphones.
Yes, the two of us got smartphones then. So our kids kind of always saw them coming up. And this was an opportunity to break away from what we could already see was sometimes really draining experience on social media. And they became people who wanted to create things and make things and do something. So I love that.
Yeah. And I think that they also realize that there's a wide, beautiful world out there that you can see with your own eyeballs, and it doesn't have to be seen through a screen. And that's I think an important insight for all of us in this day and age, not just our kids. I think as adults we forget that, and we tend to live through, like, our screens are the window through which we see the whole world, and that's a small way to live, I think.
Mm-hmm.
There's a big world out there that we can look at with our own eyeballs.
I think one of my favorite things that happened is that we showed them, because we took them traveling with us, we showed them what it looks like to try to pursue a dream or a big ambitious goal. And they saw the perseverance and they saw the triumphs, and we sang together and we had our inside jokes. It was something that we shared, but they also saw, oh, as an adult, you could do something like this.
I think for me, that's the most important one right there, which is that when you bring your kid, when you bring your kids on your rocket ship and you go to amazing places and you live an amazing life as an adult, not that it needs to be flashy or expensive, or, you know, and it should be authentic to what you want. Don't try and just follow somebody else's bucket list of what a great life should look like. But when you do something that you truly value and appreciate and your kids see you doing it, you are teaching them the most important thing about how to shape their own life, which is to live true to their own values and to do the things that are going to really bring them the greatest joy and satisfaction. Because if you show them a life of hating your job, resenting responsibilities of taking care of kids, if you show them being trapped in, you know, whatever situation, you know, I can't get out of this town, I can't get out of this neighborhood, or, you know, whatever you're showing them, that's a powerful model that chances are really good they're going to follow to some degree. And if you can show them some other way, like go back to it and listen to our episode on, what was the one we were talking about, Pavel and
Declare your independence.
Declare your independence. If you just give them the idea of what it can look like, the chances of them living a life that they find happy and satisfying and that you are happy for them to be living goes way up. Show them how to live your best life. Show them how to live their best life by living your best life.
The last thing I want to say about traveling with kids is that they are so funny, and they can help you keep your sense of humor just as much as they might make you want to lose your temper. And they come up with the funniest insights, and it's just delightful to share those experiences with them.
Do you have one in mind?
I just remember when we were living on the sailboat and your parents were visiting us for like a week or something, and we were celebrating one of the kids' birthdays, and one of our other kids had a poopy diaper.
Oh my
and
God.
We were trying to get rid of it. Anyway, the older sister was taking it to a trash can, and she slipped because the tiles were wet. Maybe you could pick it up from here.
Okay. Yeah. So she's carrying a dirty diaper and she slips and the diaper goes flying in the air, and our daughter catches herself and doesn't hurt herself. But then when she's stable, she can't find the poopy diaper. It's disappeared. And so a search begins to find this poopy diaper. And our daughter is literally on her hands and knees kind of around the pool, which is where this was happening, and kind of like looking through the bushes, and finally finds it. And she grabs this poopy diaper, which is all wrapped up and very sanitary. And she holds it there and she's like, I found it. Like this triumphant moment. And I think the best part of the story was
You had a great line.
I said, was it in the third place you looked? Not the first, not the second, but the third place you looked.
It was so funny. And I guess that wasn't something funny that the kids did, but the whole experience was hilarious.
Just travel with me.
Because of the kids. Anyway, just so many things. Or sometimes when we're about to lose our temper, one of them will just bust out laughing at us like, this is ridiculous. Or remember these funny jokes. And it's just fun. You decide what works for you, but we just want to offer this up for your consideration. Feel free, travel alone, travel with your lover, but sometimes travel with your kids because it's fun and it's worth it, and there's tons of good that comes out of it.
What could go right? Hey there, this is Eric. Just want to let you know what the latest is on sailing. First of all, people are having a blast on these trips, and we're actually kind of overwhelmed with the response, but we're having fun, so we're going to keep going. All right, so we do have some limited space for trips this fall and winter. All of our summer trips are full up, but in fall, winter 2024, we have room on a trip to Italy in September, Mexico in October, Thailand in November, and Bahamas in December. So there are limited spaces for those trips coming up. However, we also are booking into 2025. So in the winter months, we're going to be going to warm places like the Bahamas and the Caribbean. And then once we get more into summer, we're going to be in Europe. So Croatia, Greece, Italy, and hopefully we're going to do a week in Mallorca, Spain. So that's the lineup. And if you're interested in any of that, go to theawesomefactory.nyc/sailing 2024. This will also be in the show notes. You can also email us at hello@theawesomefactory.nyc. So go to the show notes. The link is theawesomefactory.nyc/sailing 2024, even though we're talking about trips into the future in 2025. You can also email us at hello@theawesomefactory.nyc. Would love to welcome you aboard.